Welcome back to the channel. It is October, probably my favorite time of the year, and that means I try to watch 100 horror films in 31 days and do daily videos or every other day videos showing you what I watched. I've been doing this will be the seventh year, and I recorded everything back to 2016, so if anybody's interested in punishing themselves and watching those, they can. I've got my list of films all set for every day. If anybody else is doing this, it's on the DVD Talk forums, and there's a lot more guidelines and checklist things that we try to accomplish than just watching 100 films. For example, there's a subset pick. There's a theme for every day and a subset film to watch. Uh, so those type things. So it's fun. I've enjoyed doing it. The challenge technically starts uh, the night of September 30th, which gives you a little extra wiggle room to try to make your 100. And so I watched, with that as kind of an entree, I watched two films Friday night and then another three films on Saturday. So I'm at five now. So let's go through what I watched. I'll tell you right now, I've watched a lot. I'm going to be watching a lot more streaming uh, in this 100 horror films challenge than in previous years. I'm keeping track of the numbers, of course, to see how many I actually watched. But just looking at what I've planned to watch throughout the month, it's a lot of it. A lot of it is streaming. But it's newer films, and I just for newer films, I kind of like to watch them before I make the investment in buying them. And the first film that we're going to talk about today is a great example of why I would prefer to watch it as opposed to buy it. And that film is Climax 2018, Gaspar Noé's film. Of course, he did Irreversible, which I have the Blu-ray of that. Um, I don't get it. This was on my list just based on people are having an orgasm over Climax. That's a joke, by the way. Uh, but they really are. I mean, if you go to Letterboxd, if you want to track when I'm watching quicker than these videos come out, I'm on Letterboxd under Number Crunch, and but yeah, on Letterboxd, I mean, people are just having an orgasm over Climax. These 5 stars, 5 out of 5, 4 out of 5, a masterpiece. I think this movie is shit. I was truly fucking irritated by the hour mark. I mean, so basically, you've got these young dancers, and they're in this abandoned, empty school building, and they're practicing their dancing, and they're dancing the techno music, and you've got this thumping techno music that they're dancing to for, I don't know. I mean, it was a good 50 minutes before anything really started happening. And what happens is they get this sangria they've been drinking has been spiked. We don't know who did it. Somebody did it. But then everybody starts having going nuts, basically, hallucinating and having all kinds of fucked up things going on. And there are some fucked up things going on, but by the time we got to it, I didn't give a shit. And when we got to it, yet again, Gaspar Noé, with his pretentious style, had to turn the camera upside down and turn it sideways and twirl it. Basically, Climax is the first 30 minutes of Irreversible redone. Pulse pounding music, weird, pretentious camera angles, uh, fluorescent lighting. I mean, but this is worse. Climax is worse because there's no story. There's nothing to this. There's no character development. There's nothing. It's just a group of dancers. I mean, if you like techno pop and you like dancing, watching people dance, you're gonna love this. Uh, I mean, it's just basically by the time when we got to the third act, and I saw that what the third act was going to be was simply a rehash of stylistical rehash of Irreversible. The first 30 minutes of Irreversible, my 5 out of 10 rating went to 4. I just think this is a piece of shit, and I don't get it. Maybe somebody can explain it to me. I know that people think this is a masterpiece, a work of art. Um, I just hated it. I'm telling you, by the time the third act came along, I was in full hate mode. So to make a long story short, we had the 100 horror films in 31 days for 2022 starts off in the shitter with Climax 2018. I am not a fan of Gaspar Noé, and I think he's pretentious. Um, and the stylistic his use of this style that he has of weird camera angles and pulse pounding techno music uh, and quick editing and you know you're not sure you're seeing what you're seeing. Surreal style, which I like a surreal style. I love Jess Franco, but no, I don't like this. And honestly, if he's going to do that in every film he makes, I ain't going to watch another one. It's just crap. All right, that's enough of that rant. That was a rant. That's about as much of a rant as you're going to get from me. But you got a rant there. Um, Next up is a night and day better film. 1963's The Haunting, directed by Robert Wise. This is probably the preeminent ghost story film. This is just fantastic. It's shot in, of course, it's shot in black and white, although in '63. I mean, the choice of shooting it in black and white was an excellent choice. Robert Wise is a fantastic director. He's got a great feel for the genre. You know, he did They There Stood Still. He's done so many great movies, and he knocks it out of the park with this one. Juliette Harris is fantastic in this. Basically, this is a film about a house called Hill House, and the film does a great job of establishing the story by showing these these unexplainable deaths that occurred, and that kind of sets it up that the house is just a 90-year-old tortured actual living thing, and we get this paranormal guy that comes and along with Julie Harris, and we try to figure out what's going on in the house. Great stuff. Loved it. This is a Warner Archive release, and it does have usually Warner doesn't have any kind of special features per se, but this actually has a commentary track, which is very good. We got a cheap Echo case, but other than that, a great release. Highly recommend The Haunting. I give it an 8 out of 10. And that does it for Friday night's watches. Now we're going to move into Saturday. And we're going to start off with a Jess Franco film. Jess Franco's Count Dracula from 1970, starring Christopher Lee, all-star cast, Christopher Lee, uh, Klaus Kinski is Renfield, and then you got the gorgeous Soledad Miranda. I mean, before she passed away unexpectedly, she's in this, and she is just drop dead gorgeous, man. Uh, this film is reputed to be the closest thing to the novel, an honest adaptation of the novel as you can get. But honestly, it's really not. Uh, I actually think the Louis Jourdan BBC film from '77 is the closest thing to a true faithful adaptation of the novel. None of those, of course, are the best Dracula. The best one is, to me, is Hammer's Horror of Dracula, followed by closely, although depending on my mood, I would probably say Werner Herzog's Nosferatu uh, would be number one, followed by Hammer's Horror of Dracula, followed by Nosferatu the original, and then Bela Lugosi. And I think the best performance of Dracula is Bela Lugosi. The best movie overall, if you rate it, I'm getting too far off the field here, but uh, when you take the total package, the guy who's playing Dracula, who's the story, all those things, I think Werner Herzog's Nosferatu's the best vampire film, Dracula film. But anyway, having said that, let's get back to Franco's Count Dracula. I've seen this 5, 6, 7 times, and this Severin release has a audio commentary track with Maria Rome. It also has an interview with Jess for 30 minutes. So it's a stacked release, really. And there's some things about it that I really like. Um, this film does a good job of being true to the look of Dracula. He's an old man at the start, and as he drinks blood, he gets youthful. So I think there's elements of this that are definitely faithful to the book. But by the time you get to the third act, I think Franco or the producer or whoever takes liberties with the storyline and just kind of goes off into the ditch, with it. Particularly the ending. The ending is just very weak in my opinion. And I don't know why they chose to deviate from the book, but they did. The film was flat, you know. I can't put my finger on it, but watching it this time, I just felt like it's very flatly acted, including Chris Lee. I know that's probably blasphemy, but I just felt like everybody in this just was kind of there, went through the shot, did the scene, but there was no tension, no dramatic tension, nothing that really grabbed and held the audience's interest. It's overly lit too for a horror film, I think, which I'm surprised because Franco's so great at lighting and camera work. This is unusually too well lit, I think, for a vampire film. It's not a bad film. I still gave it a 7 out of 10. Those criticisms aside, I still like the film. I've seen it a bazillion times. I wish Klaus Kinski had more to do in this. He plays the Renfield, and he just he's in his little asylum room and he's acting crazy, but he really doesn't have much to do, unfortunately. And I think the lead that played Jonathan Harker, I can't remember his name, is terrible. He probably is when you look at the first 30 minutes of the film, he's just so uninteresting that, I think that when I say the film is flatly acted, I kind of am thinking of him. Who was that anyway? Herbert Lom is in it. He's very good as Van Helsing. I don't remember who. I'm curious now as to who played Jonathan Harker here. Fred Williams. Yeah, I'm not impressed with Fred. Actually, Fred Williams was in Fright Night, which is crazy. Um, he's been in a lot of movies. He's not a bad actor, but man, alive, it just was not working, at least with this film. So all in all, I think I'm going to give that a 7 out of 10. Next up, hang on, let me get back to my letterbox here. 1980s Patrick Still Lives, which is a I've never seen this. This is the first time viewing. Um, of course, the original Patrick was made in Australia. This is an Italian film ripping off Patrick using the title. It's really it's a sequel in name only. It's basically an Italian reimagining of Patrick. It's a Italian version of the original film. There is a Patrick in it. There is a telekinesis type aspect to it. but it's really just a reimagining of that film, and I loved it. It's sleazy. It's typical Euro sleaze. You actually have a woman getting impaled through her vagina in this thing. The last 30 minutes is just absolutely batshit crazy. I loved it. It's a little slow. I agree. It's a little slow, but it's typical. It's really, if you like Bruno Mattei movies, you're going to like this. That's what I would say. This thing is light on special features. It's got an interview with the guy that played Patrick, Gianni Day, I think is his name, and C'est La Vie, which is like a 10-minute interview. But other than that, that's it. The picture quality looks great. Definitely recommend Patrick Still Lives. 7 out of 10. And then finally, a film that I had the theme yesterday was Chris Lee, kind of a homage to Chris Lee. So I picked a film that I hadn't seen, or I thought I'd never seen before, Nothing But the Night, 1973, which turns out I've got a DVD of it, but I'm too lazy to go get it, so I'm just going to talk about it without showing it to you. It's kind of a police procedural about some mysterious trustees that die mysteriously, and they've set up this big land fund, and of course, always with these trust funds or inheritance scenarios, it's always set up so that if the key principals die, someone it reverts to someone else, which always sets up these what you think is these murder for inheritance plots, but it's not really like that. Um, there are deaths going on, and it's very mysterious, but it's got a supernatural element to it, which I enjoyed. But it is very talky. It's a police procedural, but what you get is Chris Lee, Peter Cushing working together to figure this out, and they could just be sitting there watching C-SPAN and talking about C-SPAN, and it would be interesting. So I enjoyed it. But it's not going to be for everybody. It's a very horror light British film. I gave it a 7 out of 10. Peter Sadzia directed it, who I think is a very interesting director. He did quite a few Hammer titles, Countess Dracula being that, and Taste the Blood of Dracula, Hands of the Ripper. He's done some good stuff, but I mean, this is a very light film, lightweight film, but I enjoyed it. If you're interested and in the mood for a police procedural type thing, a little bit of mystery involved, I think that's something you'll enjoy. And with that, I wrap up day one of the 100 horror films in 31 days. If you've seen these films or have any thoughts or comments, leave them below. Thanks for watching.